I really enjoyed hearing the story about how the first cathedral was established. I think that I was born the year after we moved to this building, so I only know this building, but I've heard the stories about Greenfield Street, and I learned even more today. And so, yeah, you all, as most of you know, I was raised in this church, and so I'm going to be 25 in 2 weeks. Today is just going to be about my journey kind of navigating adulthood. So I'll give you a little story time about that. Like she mentioned, I graduated college in 2022 with a degree in strategic communications. And I was actually fortunate enough to find a job right after college, so I didn't really have to do the job search too much in the beginning. And the job that I started out with, I knew that it was a good start, but I also knew that that's not where I wanted to stay forever, but it was a good start. And so I actually stayed at that job for a year and 9 months. But at the end of that time, I kind of knew, like, okay, I'm ready to move on to something new. And that's where the conflict came in, because I quickly learned that with a degree in communications, that was very broad. So, yeah, every organization has a communications field, but then there's also like 20 different communications roles within that. So I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I had never thought about that. You know, like when you go to school to be a nurse, you're a nurse. When you go to school to be a dentist, you're a dentist. But communications, it was not like that. And so I knew that I was ready to leave my job, but then I didn't know what I wanted to do next. So I just stayed at this job while I navigated that, and it was very stressful. So that's where the power of prayer came in. I knew that I had to lock in, so I prayed a lot, and I was just like, can you please help me navigate like what I want to do, because I need to know. So I connected with a variety of people. I connected with people that I knew, people that I even didn't know, that I found on LinkedIn that were in roles that I knew that I would potentially want to be in. And so I would speak to people, and there's one guy in particular who was the director of admissions at a local boarding school. And so when I was in college, I was very involved. So I was an RA, and yeah, I felt like admissions could be a good route. So speaking to this guy, he told me about a job work site for higher education. And I had never heard about this site, didn't know that a higher education job work site was a thing. So networking to this guy provided me with this opportunity. So I looked at that website he told me about, and there was a ton of jobs on there. So I went through all of them, and I took some time, and I was just like, no. Like, there was a ton, and I was just like, no. But at the end, there was one job, one out of a ton that I stuck with, and I was like, okay, and it was for an admissions role at Goodwin University. And I had never heard of Goodwin, but I read the job description, and I was like, okay, I can do this. And there was 3 things that stood out. So at my old job, it was 10 minutes from my house, and I like that. So this new job was 10 minutes from my house. I was like, okay. And then the next thing is that for the new job, there was like a pay range, and the lowest range was still higher than what I was currently making. So I was like, okay. And then, yeah, it all seemed to click. And then this new job was also hybrid, whereas the other one, I had to go in every day. So I was like, okay, I'll just apply. And so I applied, and I got called in to do a phone interview. And so I knew I needed this, so I prayed between before the phone interview, and then I actually ended up having 2 more interviews after that. So I prayed between each one of them because like I needed this. And I saw prayer works like instantaneously, because before going into each of the interviews, I was never nervous, and on the interviews, like, I knew the answers to all of the questions they were asking. It kind of just flowed, and I was like, oh wow. And so at the third interview, it was with the director, and at the end of the day, he gave me a tour of the whole place, and that's how I knew like I had it. I did get the job offer, and so the next thing was like that pay range, and so I was just praying. I was like maybe they're gonna give me the lowest or the middle, but I really want to negotiate getting the highest of that range. But the range is there, and I want the highest of the range. So I was like, okay. And then I got my offer letter, and they gave me the highest of the range. So I was like, okay, well, last week I hit a year at that job and I'm still loving it. Like I really have no complaints. And yeah, it was just all like, it was like whenever people ask about it, I say it's literally like handed to me by God, because I went through all of those jobs and nothing was sticky except that one. And then everything just like worked out well and it went pretty smooth. And so a scripture that I tie this all into is one that I learned growing up, and so I still keep it with me now. So it's Proverbs 3:5-6, and so it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your path." And that is my story. And thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you.